Zoom. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar for the Media Ed Club of the Media Education Lab for August 2025. Today is August 4th. My name is Wes Fryer. I'm a middle school teacher in Charlotte, North Carolina, and we are going to talk today about searching with AI. Can we trust the gatekeepers? And we sometimes haven't continued these through the summer, and I appreciate you all being here. And this is a super timely topic, and I hope today will be fun because we are not going to kind of follow a traditional, let's hear some overview comments for 10 or 15 minutes and then talk. I'm going to invite you to engage in an activity with the other folks that are here. And so here's our outline. As I said, if you want to put into the chat who you are, where you're coming from, what your professional role is, that would be wonderful. And if you have engaged in searching with AI overviews, with Google or anything else, feel free to go ahead and share that. I want to share a few announcements related to the Media Education Lab and media literacy. And then I'm going to invite us to actually not just breakout room discussions, but a breakout room activity that we're going to try with a prompt that I've selected, and then we're going to come back and share. So we'll hopefully have some shared experiences here with AI chat today because it is dynamic, as we know, lots of things happening and changing all the time, and so we'll come back. So it's really, I guess I should have adjusted this in my slideshow. It's really a breakout room activity, but that is not going to be recorded. And then we'll come back for the whole group share time. So that is the plan. And let's see, Scott, I'm going to see if you tire, Scott, of me knighting you for these, just, feel free to let me know. But I mentioned I'm on one screen today, and
I just have to head out about 10 minutes early today, just so you know.
what's that?
I have to head out a little
Oh,
early. I
you do.
can't
Okay.
can't
Yeah,
stay
no,
till
no
10.
worries. No worries at all. I'm just if you wouldn't mind admitting folks as they pop in, that would be
Got it.
great. Okay, cool. We do have some collaborative notes, and in fact, you can access all of these slides. Okay, I think I just confirmed Scott there. So let me go ahead and put that into the chat. And if you all want to share that again for other folks who join us, that would be great. The collaborative notes actually have archived. You can find these a couple places, but you can find out what's coming up as well as what we've done in the past on our collaborative notes, and you can feel free to add to those. Let me actually make sure, because I have to change these, that yeah, everybody's got comment access to that. So please go ahead and jump into those collaborative notes if you would like to. Um, let's talk about some announcements. We are going to be, having the academic year here gear up in North America, and so there'll be more. But right now, if you go to the Media Education Lab events, there's 3 events for today. So this is kind of a big day to include events at the University of Washington in person. But the only scheduled event that we have, there'll be more coming, is on September 25th, assessing the evidence for digital interventions to inoculate against misinformation. This is a free webinar, and Dan Lonan, who is New Zealand born, he is at the Institute of Radboud University in the Netherlands within the Behavioral Science Institute. He is going to be the presenter. And so really look forward to that and encourage you to register for that event. I want to also amplify something we talked about a couple weeks ago, which is the civics of technology. And the civics of technology is a wonderful grassroots media literacy focused organization. We have a lot of cross-pollination with people and ideas in between the groups, and they sponsor monthly tech talks. That will be tomorrow, Eastern time. That'll be 8 to 9 p.m., wherever that happens to be in your locale. I've jumped in on one of those previously, and it's really just an open-ended discussion about events, articles, books. I would suspect there will be some good discussion about the conference, which just wrapped up last Thursday and Friday. And that is my next announcement that on July 31st and August 1st, the Civics of Technology hosted a fantastic 2-day online free Zoom conference that was focused on communal resistance to artificial systems. And you can access that by going to their website, civicsoftechnology.org. And then if you want to just put in /2025 conference, they had that password protected during the actual conference. It was really lovely. I think they have WordPress running their site, and that one page served as the jumping off point for all the sessions. They had a keynote each day, first by Audrey Waters and second by Chris Gilliard. And then they had panels. It was just fantastic. I wrote a couple of blog posts, and that in fact inspired our prompt today that we'll be inviting everyone to engage in. But that's a link to my Speed of Creativity post about the Institute, and I took a lot of notes on a Google Doc. Just wonderful. And Dan Krutka, who is a professor at the University of North Texas, is maintaining a Blue Sky starter pack. And that's a quick way that you can connect via social media with a lot of other folks. And so he added a bunch of people who both presented and participated in the Civics of Tech conference this last week. In addition, I want to let you know that next month, we normally are on the first Monday. But in September, that falls on our Labor Day holiday, which is a pretty widespread school and just federal holiday. And so we're going to bump our meeting to the second Monday, which will be September 8th. And our topic is going to be share out your favorite podcasts. So your favorite podcast episodes, podcasts, sharing trusted voices. I think this is so important today, and one of the best things we can do as a community, in addition to just supporting each other and connecting with each other and getting to know each other and the kinds of work that we're doing, is filtering information for each other, and especially recommending books, recommending podcasts. And so our focus on September 8th will be podcasts, and it'll again start at noon Eastern time, whatever time that is in your locale. So let's talk a little bit about AI search. I picked this topic, earlier in the summer, and it is certainly timely. This was an article from NPR on July 31st, 2025. The title is Online News Publishers Face Extinction Level Event from Google's AI-powered search. And that is a pretty dramatic title. And as we will discuss and discover, the ease of use and potential benefits of AI search on the face look great. Wow, I don't have to go through a bunch of links in order to get an answer, which is hopefully accurate, may or may not be. But the effect that this is already having upon news publishers, which, by the way, AI relies upon to create their answers, is pretty devastating already. And there's, a lot of folks who are saying this is a real big existential threat to the news ecosystem as we've had it up to this point. And so that was an article from just a couple days ago. These are the articles that I put together and recommended. And today it was a little bit different for today's session, because what I did was take these 8 different articles and I put them into Notebook LM, which is a Google AI model, and I asked it to create a long deep dive podcast. And I think I said long, it was about 30 minutes long, which was a synthesis of these articles, but also an analysis of how these might be relevant for us as educators, as media literacy advocates, as people interested in media literacy and the changing literacy landscape, specifically in terms of the way that AI and AI search is changing things. So these articles you can access all of these by going to the Media Education Labs events page and finding our session searching for AI. And you can find that if you want to take a look at that later. You can also directly click on all of those different links. And some of these, mention some specific tools. ChatGPT is probably the most widely recognized AI platform today, but one of the tools I'm going to invite one of our breakout room groups to use is called Perplexity AI, and there was a Verge article specific to Perplexity, and then also Google's Gemini, we're also going to look at today. So here is what I propose we do. I have gone ahead and created 3 breakout rooms, and I have named those for these different AI platforms. And the Civics of Technology conference, which I mentioned just happened last week on Thursday and Friday over Zoom, really challenged my own thinking as a current middle school classroom teacher to consider even whether I should let students opt out of AI lessons and activities. We have a lot of the hype cycle with AI is very, very significant today in mainstream media. And one of the things that the conference challenged me to think about was is any use of AI ethical? So this is the prompt that I'm going to invite you to use in some AI tools, at least in the AI tool for your room, and I'll let you self-select your rooms. Hopefully we'll get people in each one of the rooms. And the question is any AI use ethical? Why or why not? And I'm saying provide philosophical and ethical support and source links for your answers. And so let me go ahead and copy and paste. I'm going to put this into the chat, and I will put this in again. We've got about 12 of us here in the room. And some of you may need to depart early, and that is just fine. But as I said, a lot of times we will have kind of a presentation first, and then we'll come back and talk. And this time, I kind of want to flip the script a little bit on that. So when we come back, these are some suggested questions that we can discuss. How did the AI tool frame this ethics question? And can we identify how they might have differed? What were the sources? Let's analyze those a little bit. Can we, extrapolate or analyze what could maybe explain the differences in answers? Why would they have said different things? And then is this an activity that you might be able to adapt with your own students? So that is the plan. And I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen. Does anybody have a question before I open up the breakout rooms about what we'll attempt to do? This is a bit more engaging as far as involvement than our normal. But I think by a show of well, any questions anybody wants to ask, but there's probably better jump into it. Okay. All right, so I've got the breakout rooms open. If you want to go ahead and join a breakout room, I'm going to pause the recording and then we'll come back in about 20 minutes and then we will debrief this. So just go ahead. Well, I said, if you want to move breakout rooms, you can. I guess it did assign them. So yeah, let's do that. I'm going to pause the recording. Okay, the recording has started again. So, hello everyone, and welcome back from your breakout rooms. I jumped around in between the rooms, and there was some great conversation going on. And what I want to do now is just open up the floor to whoever would like to talk. We have 24 of us here, and so and hello Ralph. If anybody else has just joined us, we went into 3 breakout rooms. We had a prompt about whether any AI use was ethical, asking for sources and links, and use ChatGPT and Perplexity and Gemini. Why don't we do this? Why don't we see if we could have a spokesperson from each room just kind of say a little bit about what happened in your room, and then we'll just, open it up for everybody. So would anybody who was in room 1 with ChatGPT be brave and willing to grab the mic and tell us a little bit about what you all did in your room and what you observed, and then others can, chime in as well. Be bold. Or nominate someone if you care to nominate a person in your group, which I do frequently in my classroom. We have.
Probably I can step in.
Please.
It was very interesting because we tested individually GPTs, and some of us logged in, some of us logged out using the reasoning model or the other the main model, limiting the sources to academic sources, so different results. And most of the answers were, the short answer was yes to the main question.
Right.
And then we discussed these differences, the sourcing and specific framing. So shifting the framework to something specific regarding, for example, media literacy use and other contexts.
Thank you so much. One of the comments, I think it was from room one, was also that even with the same model and the same prompt, we can get different results. And we know this from Google because of the way our digital footprint is, whatever that is, the shadow, trail that we leave on the web and the things that Google thinks we want to see. But that was pretty important. Someone pointed out a while back, with Wikipedia, if we access the article at the same time, we see the same version. But that is certainly not true in so many other places of the web, definitely with social media platforms. Anybody else in room one or somebody who used ChatGPT want to share an observation or thought?
Another thing we've noted, sorry, is that in some of the answers we got, there was the idea that tech is somehow neutral. So yes, it can be ethical, but it depends on how you are using it. So we were discussing this idea.
For sure. And talking also about how, refining the prompt leads to such different results. I know I have used a particular framework, like taking an Aristotelian perspective, tell me about the ethics of, AI use or something like that. And so also loading in sources sometimes. Would someone from the Perplexity group from room two, that may be a new tool to some folks who may not have heard of Perplexity or used Perplexity. So can you tell us a little bit about how Perplexity seemed different, if at all, and then just a little observation of what you all did or what you observed? And again, feel free to nominate someone if you would
I'll
like.
start out because I gotta go soon. But so Mariana posted the prompt into Perplexity, and then it gave a list of things. And my initial observation was, so it came up with things. Yes, AI is ethical if it's unbiased and there's privacy issues and security issues and all these things. It's like, yeah, and it's ethical, but either we can't know these things or we don't know, or, as far, oh, and if there's some kind of regulations, it's like, well, things are not looking good on that count. So it's kind of hard. It just makes it hard to know if an AI can be ethical, given that, okay, this is how we measure it, but we don't really know. Um, and I was saying that one thing that I think some people don't quite get is that we have this model of computer programming, and a computer, you have lines of code and the programmer can go in and debug. And there, at some level, there is that with AI, but at another level, here's the massive amounts of data, here's the massive amounts of processing, go at it. And at that level, you can't really kind of peek under the hood and say, oh, this is, we can't do this, we can't do that. So I kind of forget where I was going to end up with that
what I'm
point.
hearing you say is there's a lot of opacity and things that we just can't see inside. And I think we've talked about that and before a lot with the algorithms of Facebook or Twitter and what is prioritized and what is, lowered. Mariana, go ahead. You've got your hand raised.
I found it very curious, interesting that Perplexity immediately acted in its own defense. And it said, technology in of itself, it's neutral. It's what we do with it. It's governance and opacity and, and social and environmental impact. But it basically said it's whatever you humans do with it, which I thought was very interesting. And we know that's kind of not the case because, once you introduce, Neil Postman, once you introduce something at that level, systemic level, it makes all kinds of changes that we hadn't foreseen. We also tried it in different modes. We tried it in the general mode, and then we tried it in the academic mode. And in which case it gives us all kinds of philosophical takes on it and, on ethics and so on. So it was interesting to compare. Sources were very different. It lists a lot of sources. It gives references. And then one feature that I like is that it always ends up by giving you further research questions that you can explore.
Right.
It inspires you to branch out.
And that's that idea of using AI perhaps as a thinking partner. That is a controversial topic and prospect with some folks, but yes. Perplexity is one that I have dabbled with the least. I've used ChatGPT the most, Claude the second most, and then Gemini. Gemini's integration into Google Classroom and Notebook LM as well, I think is going to mean a lot more K-12 students are probably going to use that. And then just Google's AI overviews that are built into Google search, really means that, this, and I'm going to be I don't want to be North American centric because we have lots of international folks, but wherever you are in the academic calendar, like there's a lot more. This is happening because the tools are being integrated into the platforms that folks are already using quite a bit. Anybody else want to comment on Perplexity? And then we'll move on to the Gemini group in group 3.
I had a question. I haven't used Perplexity, but when I think it was Sonia from Bulgaria, was that I'm not even sure what she did with the settings at the beginning with reasoning mode and the other modes. So I don't know if that's something we're going to look at or talk about after the last group shares, but
we certainly can go there. Absolutely. Yeah. And please, toss in questions into our chat as well, because we can give those voice and dive in those. Let's have some folks from group 3, that was the Gemini group, share any observations and results from that group.
I'm happy to kick off. I know a couple of folks were able to run it through Gemini on their end. Yeah, I think, it sounds great what it spit out. It certainly seems well reasoned and well and sourced. It was about like 15 paragraphs of text. It was pretty hard for me as a non-expert on philosophy to understand if it did a good job or not. But its conclusion that not all AI use is ethical certainly is something that I agree with, and that it established certain moral principles that I think are pretty well founded in terms of transparency, accountability, fair and unbiased, respect of privacy, designed for human flourishing. I love that word, flourishing. So all that stuff is great. And it echoes my own organization's views on when it's ethical or not ethical to use AI. And then we dived into the sources, and some of them are great. There's like UNESCO and Stanford, and then some of them are from the companies in their own AI ethics. So it's like, are we talking about companies' ethics and them saying what their own ethics are? I didn't see any governmental sources, which I thought was a little susp. And some of them were just articles. They weren't actual papers. They were just a summary, an article that, of a longer study that it didn't actually look at. So that I thought made it seem a little thin to me, but at its face, it looked hard. I imagine your average student is going to look at it and go, this seems great. I'm going to use every single one of these.
Right. Copy and paste. Thank you, Rick. Anybody else from group 3 want to chime in, especially if maybe you hadn't used Gemini, if you noticed anything in particular there with what you all tested? I'll give voice to some of the things that are in the chat, but before that, I'll comment that guardrails are so variable because values are so variable, right? And ethics in terms of what is permissible, what is not. The replatforming we've seen of different groups in the last, 8 months or whatever, has been an example of that. And so, as I think about social media, search, all of these kind of things, the idea of a global village and that we could all have a global commons, it's really challenging because we have disagreement among groups in some cases about what those guardrails should be and what the limits of permissible speech would be. I mean, an example is just in Germany in terms of the use of the swastika there's some big differences. And so I think that there's a lot of value in doing this, but I also think, boy, this is tough. To Rick's point about, how philosophically grounded and experienced are we with different perspectives. I think it can really be helpful to narrow the prompt and to provide the prompt with more specificity about, for instance, the ethical framework to take, and maybe to have, and if we were going to do this with students, we could say, using a, Aristotelian perspective, or using, Rawls' perspective, or, we could have different philosophical frameworks. I'm going to say your name correctly. Iglita, am I going to say that right? Can you tell us a little bit about the ChatGPT settings that you put screenshots for through Perplexity? Tell us about that. Those, you can access those in the chat if y'all want to take a look at those.
Yeah, and I can, by the way, share, and probably we can all share the results of our prompts.
You bet. No, that is actually
After that. But the idea was to compare the free ChatGPT logged in by the desktop app with the ChatGPT versions in Perplexity Pro. So I'm paying subscriber, and I can change the models. And in the screenshot, you can see that. And in this case, the setting is for the reasoning model, the one you can see all the sub questions that is asking for itself, digging for information and picking up sources, and then filtering only academic sources. So this is approach that allows you to compare different results and to pick those probably most suitable, appropriate for the purpose of use. Yeah, that is what I shared, because Anne-Marie raised this question about the settings, and it makes a difference. Most of the time, it makes a difference. From my perspective, and from recent MIT comparative research for 4 different purposes, they compared 5 models. Claude from Anthropic is probably the most reliable one, for example, to analyze legal text, or to analyze some of the speeches of Trump. So these are the different results that were compared. So you can find this article from MIT comparing these 5 models. I can share the chat, of course.
Yeah, no, that's great. I will also be sharing the chat log, so any links that you want to share and put in will be linked in our document. Ralph had asked if anybody had looked at ChatGPT study mode, and Scott said he had played with it. Scott, can you tell a little bit about that? How was that different?
The study mode, I think it's supposed to kind of emulate Khan Academy, or you can put in prompts that say basically, don't give the answers, guide me towards the answer. So it's supposed to be kind of really education focused and instruction focused. So you put in a topic, I think I put in critical media literacy or something, and guide me through it. So it just kind of it doesn't just give answers. It's supposed to be like a teacher. So I actually posted in LinkedIn after using it. Is this the beginning? Is this a great tool, or is this the beginning of the end for human-based education? So,
wow, Mariana, thank you for raising your hand, and please raise your hand, and because I'd love to. We have a great group here, and get as many folks sharing perspectives as we can. Mariana, go ahead.
It's just a quick anecdote, because sometimes I feel like kids won't understand that there's also values baked in. It's not just a matter of factual information, right or wrong. So once I was doing a test with teachers of English as a foreign language, and they had to come up with a piece of text and adapt it to different age levels or levels of expertise or fluency. And the question they wanted to ask was, should energy drinks be allowed for teenagers? Should teenagers be allowed to drink energy drinks? And then some people tested ChatGPT, and they said, of course, it's a matter of individual choice, but the bottles have to be labeled so that you have health information. It's not very healthy and so on. But ultimately, it comes down to individual freedom of choice. But DeepSeek had just came out, the Chinese AI. And then one group decided to test DeepSeek, and they came out with a completely different answer. It said, absolutely not, because these things are bad for your health. And, if a lot of people have health problems, then it's a collective issue. It's a public health issue. So I would say should not be allowed. But because we don't want to take people's freedom, liberty to choose completely away. Let's just say that they should be allowed to drink energy drinks only with parental permission. So that was a Chinese GPT said, AI's answer, which was very interesting. I mean, this is completely invisible, but there's value, society level values are baked in.
Yes, yes. And the fact that DeepSeek is a Chinese-based AI, I should have put it in one of our groups, right? That would have
Yeah.
been probably even
Yeah.
more interesting to do. So, Daniela, go ahead.
So I was thinking about what someone just asked in our chat, if it's better or worse than students rely on a Google search. What's the difference between relying on a Google search, classical search to find sources? And I just want to share you something that has been bothering me a lot. My daughters, it's so hard because now when they are looking for an information and they see the first paragraph on Google that is the answer provided by artificial intelligence, and I ask, what's the source? And then they say Google, because I think it's harder for them now to realize that Google the tool had to look for information in different parts of the internet. So before the artificial intelligence tool, I think it was a little bit easier, at least, to convince them that there were different sources, and then we need to choose some of them. Okay, most of the time they would choose the first one, but at least they would realize that it's not Google itself who is giving you the answer. And now I think it's harder for me to explain that. I would love to listen from you what you've been seeing with your students or kids or whatever, because it's been really hard here.
Absolutely. I just put into the chat a link to flintk12.com, and I'm not trying to just do a promotion. That's the tool my particular school, which is a pre-K-12 private school in Charlotte, North Carolina, has used the last 2 years. And the thing that has been so valuable about that to me is that it allows the teacher to create the quote activity, and then it records everything that students do, so that just like today where we did different things and we want to have some visibility to, oh, what did you find when you put this prompt in or you use this tool, it had all of that documented. And so I've used that both. I taught high school AP computer science last semester, and then my middle school classes. I've used those logs to be able to see myself how students were using and asking questions, and then also the result that they obtained. So it occurs to me that because we may not want to do this, but if we end up using these tools or inviting students to use these tools, having them as fully as they can document their use can be helpful. I know that ChatGPT, like if you record your voice, or sometimes if it created pictures, it wouldn't use the share link and just be able to share the link. Our daughter, who is a junior in college this year, last year found her liberal arts classes were much less encouraging of the use of AI tools. Her STEM engineering classes, they were, but this is the Air Force Academy. They had them have huge amounts of documentation of what they've used. So it's just something that I'll throw out there that I have personally found helpful, and I think it can lead to some good conversations about some of this nuance. Because to Daniela's point, yeah, it's really wild how it's just a presentation of an answer in some cases that might even be more challenging for students with less experience to recognize what has created that answer, that that's not a final answer, and that answer has all kinds of bias and inputs. Who else would like to share? We've got about 6 more minutes.
I had a question, Wes. I was writing it, but I might as well just ask it. I hear a lot of people saying that we should get kids to submit their trail, the documentation of their process. But that, of course, would increase teachers' workloads by like tenfold. So I'm wondering how that equates,
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm wondering about it just as a hyperlinked activity. To me, it's been surprising, even getting my doctorate, how non-normative it is to say hyperlink your works cited bibliography, right? Because a non-hyperlink bibliography is so much less helpful to me if I actually want to dive deeper into your paper or whatever you've made. So yeah, I think we definitely need to be wary of that. I think that thorough academic attribution of our AI use. I know when I create AI images now, I'm trying to meticulously actually put on the image, not just text that's associated with it, but on the image, AI image by, myself. But that's a good point. We don't need to just raise, we've already got, hey, we've got too much email as it is, much less all this AI stuff. Katie, go ahead, please.
Yeah, so I just wanted to like add two things or like talking about them documenting their stuff. Well, if you go back old school, I feel like I'm going to do a session. Let's teach like it's the 1990s, but like we used to care about the process. If you're doing an essay, like, okay, what's your brainstorming? Show me your outline. Let's look at your draft. Show me evidence of revision. Like, why did we stop caring about that? Like,
Right.
that would have fixed a lot of this. And then those are those moments to go ahead and give that feedback in the midst of their work. We all know like feedback at the end is near pointless. So why? And also going way, way back. So you might laugh at me. I've been teaching like 30 plus years here. Not only do we have them do the research, but we also have them print all of the articles they got online. So yeah, there was evidence of their sources. So asking for a hyperlinked annotated bibliography, like that shouldn't be such this oddball request.
Absolutely. There's an old extension that we used to use. It looks like it's inactive now, called Draftback. There's a new one now, it looks like, called Revision History. I honestly have not used this, so revisionhistory.com. But I know that some of our, particularly English teachers and others, are doing this and talking to students about the fact that, hey, if I look in your revision history and suddenly there's, this fully formed essay that just appears in here without any evidence of you writing it, that's a bit of a red flag that you just copied and pasted this straight out of somewhere. I love writing. I started life in teaching as a fourth grade writing teacher, and so yes, writing the process and your outline and your thinking. My mantra with students with AI became last year, I want you to use it as a thinking partner, not a cheating partner. Now, there are some people that don't even think you should be using it as a thinking partner, and that is a valid thing to explore. But yeah, that's wow. Because what I found was that my students were, in many cases, just taking an easy way out and going with the script that the AI, created for them about our topic, and I don't think had really engaged in much thinking. Their presentations were high quality compared to how they had been before with what they said, but how much of it were things that they had wrestled with and actually, composed. I don't think there was as much of that using the AI tools. I did speech and debate for 4 years in college, and I loved that. And I think, if you've done anything with cross-examination debate in probably the past 10 years, like the way in which students share evidence that used to be really hard to get and it was on paper, but like, what do you do with it? Can you cross-examine, be cross-examined? Can you cogently utilize evidence to make a point? All of those kinds of things. Iglita, do you want to share a little bit about what you've put into chat with some of those links?
I'm not very proud of myself, but just sideline the paywall for the Washington Post article about the comparative analysis of the 5 models. So here you are. And yeah, it works for some of the publications. Do not do as myself.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
We
Yes.
won't tell. We won't tell.
Hey, Deb's comment there too. Deb, can you just give that voice about kids thinking? Or if not, I'll read it.
I don't know. I don't know how to make like, especially like in creativity, how to make, like there's that sense of purpose and that sense of like accomplishment. And like somebody said before, the friction that how do we make it so that feels good and for kids to crave it or people in general. And I referenced that book. Do you know that book, Thinking Fast and Slow by Kahneman, Daniel Kahneman.
I haven't read it.
always,
I need to.
I think about that book all the time. It has so much, it's really important because it's how our brains just naturally want to take shortcuts.
Yes.
And it's, you know.
Well, I think that is a fantastic point to end on, because really the teacher in the room and the activities which we select and create, it's so important. I want to thank each of you for participating today. Again, I want to let you know next month we will go a week later. We'll be on September 8th, and it'll be a podcast share out. So even if you're not a podcast listener, come and learn about some great podcasts. But a lot of folks are listening to a lot of different things, and it won't just be media literacy. I think there's a lot of value actually in eclectic sharing. And so what are you finding to be the trusted voices and the voices that you enjoy learning from today? And we will be doing that in September to kind of kick off the Northern Hemisphere school year. So thank you so much for participating. Thank you. Let's connect. Let's keep learning.
Thank you.
And thank you to the Media Education Lab for this opportunity for us to gather. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.